Hello, this is an excellent book. So I get that glare out of it. This is a very good book. I'll talk about the book in a minute, but I want to give some basic facts first. First, we'll do Mr. Grant, Ulysses S. Grant Jr., born April 27th, 1822, Point Pleasant, Ohio. Died July 23rd, 1883, 63 years old. In other words, he was one year older than I am right now. Mount McGregor, New York. Cause of death, esophagus cancer. He did smoke that. He's known for his cigar smoking. His wife, Julia Dent Graham, 1848 to 1885. Presidential term, March 4th, 1869 to March 4th, 1877. His vice president was Henry Wilson, 1873 1875. Chandler Colfax, 1869 to 1873. His actual real name, full name, Hiram Ulysses Grant, Party Republican. Now on to Mr. Sherman. Stop moving around. William T. Sherman, the fiery redhead. Born February 8th, 1820, Lancaster, Iowa. Died February 14th, 1891, New York. Died of pneumonia. And his Joseph Johnson attended his funeral. He said, "You don't have to be here." No. This man fought well against me. He was honorable. I am here. Pay my respects. Let's see. Education at National Military Academy. Anyway, but he was an interesting guy. Very interesting. They both were. Both very interesting. But those are the ones that I should just state like these are information. They were both pre-war failures. This book does a pretty good job of one of their early life. It's very brief. This book is mostly about probably 95% of this book is the Civil War, and they do a pretty good job of discussing their failures, their setbacks, their West Point years, their Mexican War years. Sherman was in the Seminole War. I believe it was the second one. Grant and Longstreet knew each other. General Longstreet. In fact, Longstreet was his best man at his wedding. They were both pre-war failures. Grant forced to resign from the regular army president's ranking, and Sherman holding 4 different jobs, including much loved position at the Southern Military Academy. He liked the South. He had a great respect for the South. Sherman did. He knew what was coming, and he knew how the war was going to have to be fought, but he did like the South. In the years before the firing on Fort Sumter, they began their unique collaboration 10 months into the war at the Battle of Shiloh, April 1862. Each carefully taking the other's measure, they shared the demands of family life and the heartache of personal tragedy. They shared similar philosophies of battle, employed similar strategies and tactics, and remained in close personal daily communication throughout the conflict. They had a very good working relationship. They got along with each other. They understood what this war was going to be about, and they understood what they would have to do to win it. They had their disagreements here and there, but they always worked it out. They always figured out a way to. I think it was a little grainy. Sorry. But they did. They worked well together. These were two individuals who really were quite different, but their goal was the same. This book does a very good job of demonstrating how their friendship developed, tactics they used, how they saw each other, how they dealt with each other, how they dealt with other people around them. Let's see, family life. They shared similar philosophies, I said, similar strategies. They were incontestably two of the Civil War's most important figures, and the deep abiding friendship they shared made up the ultimate victory possible. Yeah, Grant won the Civil War. I think without Sherman, we might have won, but it would have taken longer. Sherman literally was. If Lee had Stonewall Jackson as his right arm, Sherman was Grant's. I mean, It does a good job, though. This book does a very good job of showcasing the battles. I know Shiloh, Fort Henry, Fort Donelson, Chickamauga, Chattanooga, Wilderness Campaign. All the more bloodier battles were fought in '64. I mean, it really does a very good job of describing, the Vicksburg campaign. That's what I'm saying. The Vicksburg campaign is probably Grant's greatest campaign of the war because it split the Confederacy in half. It was the Anaconda Plan made up. Basically, it was not Halleck. It was Winfield Scott's plan, who was the Secretary of War at that time. Halleck, on the other hand, was a pain in the ass. He does a pretty good job of basically demonstrating that Halleck really, really, really was a pain in the butt. If they just let Grant do what Grant knew it had to be done, the war might have been over maybe a little sooner. Maybe not a lot sooner, but a lot sooner than it was. It does a good job of showing his relationship with Lincoln. And Lincoln realizing, okay, I'm just going to have to let Grant do what Grant needs to be done. And if he thinks Sherman can do what he can do, I am not going to stop either one of them. Because these two fight. Does a very good job of showing the relationships between the two of them, between the subordinate generals they've had to deal with. It's an excellent character study on a friendship, on why it is important to have at least one subordinate in your command who understands why you're doing what you're trying to do, understands the military tactics, understands the objectives. The Mississippi campaign, I call it that, that's the Vicksburg campaign. That literally was probably, if not more important, just as important, maybe a little bit more than the Gettysburg campaign. And basically, they were being fought at the same time. But it is a very good book. It is an excellent book on the battle tactics, of the personalities on both sides. I mean, it's a pretty good book. I got a couple of pages left, and then I'll be done. I mean, they have some maps in here. You're not being able to see them very well. There's Shiloh. I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's the Battle of Shiloh, which they almost lost. And Sherman came to Grant and said, now what do we do? We stay right here, and tomorrow we take them. Grant was not surrendering. Grant was not retreating. Grant knew what had to be done. Now, if Joseph B. Johnston of the Confederacy hadn't been killed on the first day of Shiloh, it might have been a little different. The battle might have ended a little differently. That's a what-if scenario. Was killed. But the Battle of Shiloh. Let's see. That's the Vicksburg campaign. I don't know if it's a very good map. It's what we have. The other one is Battle of Chattanooga. We have Sheridan doing his thing. He thought very highly of Sheridan. He thought very highly of a lot of the generals. He didn't like criticizing the generals too much. He really tried not to criticize his own generals for their failings or their lack of expertise. And some of them he had problems with, but he kept it to himself for the most part until he wrote his memoirs, which I do have his memoirs. I have him and Sherman's memoirs. So yeah, let's see. I don't even see it very well, but Grant battles in Virginia. That would be that one. That would be that one over there. I mean, those are the battles of Spotsylvania, the Wilderness, the Crater, which Grant really did regret the Battle of the Crater. He really just said, I take, I was wrong. He was a very good general. He just didn't act like a general like Lee. He didn't act like Lee. He was very much a general of his time. He knew what he had to do to win the war. He said, okay, Sherman, go, attack. Do what you have to do. And he did. He trusted Sherman. He put a lot of trust in Sherman. I mean, without the two of them, the war probably would have lasted longer. But I like this. This book is very. I know I keep saying it, but this book is very good at delving into their personalities, their personal parts. So the trying to find it there's any other maps. There's Sherman's mark. Let's see if there's another Sherman. This book does a very good job of demonstrating just that Grant literally in his mind was a failure. He just figured out give me something to do when the war started. Anything, and he tried. But part of the problem was Halleck. Was General Halleck, who I believe was I think it was like he was commanding of something. I would have to look it up. But Halleck Halleck had the same problem I think that McClellan had, and that was an ego that could not get past the fact that he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't care. Let's see. Here's the army. Let's see. Halleck. I mean, for a brief time, Halleck was in charge. Halleck's biggest problem was Halleck. I mean, Grant knew that, and he wasn't gonna be subordinate. Grant was a very obedient officer. He was just biding his time. It was becoming obvious that even the Lincoln, who in the beginning kind of tried to micromanage the war, that was part of the problem why the war was not going very well. Because they weren't letting the generals fight. And they were putting generals in charge who really should have been put in charge. General Pope and McClellan, mostly McClellan. But it's this. If you want to read a good book, probably one of the top 10 books on the American Civil War, this would be the book. I mean, it does an excellent job of showing Grant's rise and fall and rise again, his dealings with political problems, political stuff, mostly Lincoln. Lincoln comes across as basically being trying to keep the Union together, trying to do the right thing, but really just having to realize you gotta let Grant be Grant. You can't micromanage this war. It does a good job. It does a good job of showing his successes and his failures, both their successes and their failures. When they got along and how they coordinated. It also shows how Grant used the Navy that we had for amphibious assaults. That's partly how Vicksburg was taken. It is a good book. It's a very good book. I know there are pictures here. There's Grant and his wife. There's Sherman and his wife. Sherman was an interesting guy. He was an intense fellow. He had prejudices. I mean, he had them. He was not. He didn't think much of black troops. He really didn't. I mean, he knew what he had to do to win the war. He he knew what he had to win the war. That's how. That way, that complete. But he could not get out of his own way. The other one is Dixon Porter. Let's see. There's a very bad picture of Longstreet, by the way. It's a terrible picture of Longstreet. That's Jimmy Lee Johnson next to Longstreet. Who would attend Sherman's funeral. And Sherman basically told Grant, do not go into politics. Do not run for president. Don't do it. Come out west. And Sherman, a lot of people like to blame Sherman for a lot of things. They like to accuse him of this, that, and the other, such as war crimes. He knew what had to be done in this war. And so did Grant. Grant may be a little more sensitive to the plight of things. It's not so much that Sherman didn't care. Sherman knew what had to be done. And so did Grant. This is why he said, go, go, go. go to the South and make them howl. Because we got to destroy this idea of rebellion in the Southern states. It does a good job of portraying Lincoln and President Jefferson Davis of the Confederacy was a schmuck. Actually, if the Confederacy had a better president, I might have fared a little better. Maybe. It does tell you what the war was all about, which is slavery. Let's see, any other decent pictures? There's Robert E. Lee. There's Edward Stanton. If I remember correctly, in the movie Lincoln, Edward Stanton is the fellow who is played by Tommy Lee Jones. If I remember correctly. I do have a book on Stanton here somewhere. I mean, it does sort of get up to the assassination of Lincoln. Most of this book, as I said, 95% of this book is the Civil War. It's an excellent book. It is one of the best books on two of the generals of the Civil War. It does a good job of portraying the other generals like Lee and Longstreet and Jackson and a few other people. I mean, it does. I think it's fair. I think it does a fair job of showing all sides of the conflict, all sides of the different people in this book. Certainly Sherman and Grant. You get a pretty good idea what Sherman and Grant were like. They were two very different men with two different attitudes, but worked very well. And that was why that's why the book is pretty good. They were friends. They remained friends their whole lives. Unfortunately, Grant died young, 63, but thanks to Mark Twain, who had him write his memoirs, that helped. He was a friend of Mark Twain through the end of his life, who helped him write his memoirs. But I do have a copy of Grant's memoirs and Sherman's memoirs. But it is a very good book. I'm not doing this book justice. Just how well it's written, how deep it's written, how well it's written about the personalities, who they were, so on and so forth. So I would recommend this book very much, very highly. That's my bookmark for that book. Of course, it's tough. Anyway, but yes, that's read the book. I'm making a poor review of it, but it is a very excellent book, worth reading. Because you get a very good idea of these people. I don't know where that glare is coming from. I can't fix it. That's that glare. But anyway, it's been on for about 18 minutes. No questions from anybody. Oh, they've been on a few times. But the American Civil War is my second favorite subject of history to study, next to World War II being first, and everything else being third. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Behave yourselves, people, because I'm not going to. See you later.